Growth is never found in the places where everything is easy. Growth happens when you step beyond what is familiar, when you move past what is predictable, and when you embrace the challenges that come with change. Nothing great is ever birthed in comfort. Every breakthrough, every transformation, and every moment of true progress happens when you allow yourself to be stretched beyond your limits. Many people desire growth, but they do not want discomfort. They pray for elevation but resist the process that brings it. They ask God for more, but are unwilling to let go of what is holding them back. The truth is, you cannot stay the same and expect to grow. You cannot hold on to comfort and expect to reach new heights. Growth requires movement. It requires stepping into the unfamiliar, into the places where your faith is tested, into the moments where you have no choice but to trust God completely. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a tree, it must first break through the ground. That process is not easy. It requires pressure, stretching, and time. But if the seed never breaks through, it will never grow. The same is true for you. If you are unwilling to be stretched, you will never step into the fullness of what God has for you. The reason many people remain stagnant is because they are afraid of the unknown. They are afraid to take risks. They are afraid to fail. But growth is impossible without risk. It is impossible without moments of uncertainty. Look at every person in history who has done something great. They all had to take a step into the unknown. They all had to leave behind what was safe to embrace what was possible. Moses had to stand before Pharaoh even though he felt unqualified. David had to face Goliath even though he was just a shepherd boy. Peter had to step out of the boat even though the waves were raging. None of them had a guarantee. None of them had certainty. But they all had faith. And because they stepped beyond their comfort, they stepped into their destiny. God never calls you to stay the same. He calls you to grow, to evolve, to become more than you ever imagined. But that growth will always require faith. It will always require trust. It will always require a willingness to walk through seasons of discomfort, knowing that on the other side is something greater. So many people pray for a new level but refuse to leave the old one. They want a new life but hold on to old habits. They want change but refuse to embrace the process. But real change requires real commitment. It requires making a decision to move forward, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's scary, even when you don't have all the answers. If you want to grow, you must be willing to be stretched. You must be willing to let go of comfort. You must be willing to trust that God has something greater waiting for you. Because the truth is, your greatest season of growth is just beyond your comfort zone. The only question is, will you step into it? There comes a moment in life when you realize that staying where you are is no longer an option. You feel a stirring deep within, an undeniable sense that something greater is calling you forward. But stepping into that next level requires something that many struggle with: letting go. Letting go of comfort, letting go of the past, letting go of the people, places, and mindsets that no longer align with where God is taking you. Letting go is not easy. It requires trust. It requires faith. It requires the willingness to walk away from what is familiar, even when you don't know what's ahead. Many people miss their destiny because they refuse to release what is behind them. They hold on to relationships that no longer serve them. They cling to old ways of thinking that keep them trapped. They stay in places that feel safe but are no longer meant for them. But God never intended for you to stay stagnant. He never meant for you to remain in the same place forever. Growth requires release. In order to receive what He has for you, you must be willing to let go of what is no longer meant to stay. Abraham had to leave his homeland. The Israelites had to leave Egypt. The disciples had to leave their old lives behind. Every great move of God in a person's life begins with a moment of surrender, a decision to let go and trust that what's ahead is greater than what's behind. The problem is, we often confuse comfort with security. Just because something is familiar does not mean it is where you are meant to be. You can be comfortable in dysfunction. You can be comfortable in limitation. You can be comfortable in a place that is keeping you from growing. But eventually, God will challenge you. He will begin to shake things up. The things that once felt easy will begin to feel heavy. The relationships that once made sense will no longer align. The places that once felt right will start to feel wrong. And in that moment, you will have a choice. Hold on to the past or step into the future. Letting go is an act of faith. It is saying, God, I trust you more than I trust what I see. I trust that what you have ahead of me is greater than what I am leaving behind. That kind of faith is not always easy. It means stepping into the unknown. It means walking without all the answers. It means believing that even if you don't understand it now, one day you will look back and see that it was necessary. Think about a child learning to walk. At some point they must let go of what they are holding on to in order to take their first step. If they never release their grip, they will never move forward. The same is true for you. If you never let go of what is holding you back, you will never step into what is waiting for you. Some people hold on out of fear. They are afraid that if they let go, they will be left with nothing. But what they fail to realize is that God never takes something away without replacing it with something greater. Every closed door is a setup for a new beginning. Every ending is preparation for something better. Others hold on out of habit. They have been in the same place for so long that they don't know anything different. They stay in relationships that drain them. They continue patterns that limit them. They refuse to break free because they have convinced themselves that this is just the way life is. But that is a lie. Life is meant to be lived with purpose, with passion, with progress. And that only happens when you make the choice to move forward. Letting go is not losing, it is making room for more. It is trusting that what is ahead is worth the sacrifice. It is knowing that God has plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope, but you will never see those plans come to pass if you keep looking back. So today, ask yourself, what is God asking you to release? What is He calling you to walk away from? What have you been holding on to out of fear, habit, or comfort? And most importantly, are you willing to let go so that you can step into the life He has prepared for you? The choice is yours.
Every great calling requires letting go of what is safe to embrace what is sacred. There comes a moment in every life when the choice must be made: stay where it's comfortable or step into what God has prepared. The problem is, comfort feels good. It feels familiar. It feels secure. But comfort is also the enemy of destiny. If you hold on to what is safe, you will never step into what is sacred. Think of a child learning to walk. At first they hold on to something: a chair, a table, a parent's hand. That support gives them balance, but eventually they must let go. The moment they release their grip, they step into something new. Yes, they may stumble. Yes, they may fall. But unless they let go, they will never learn to walk. That is how life works. If you refuse to release what is familiar, you will never grow into what God has for you. Abraham had to leave his homeland to receive God's promise. Moses had to leave Pharaoh's palace to become a deliverer. The disciples had to leave their boats to follow Jesus. In every story of destiny, there is a moment of leaving. You cannot hold on to the past and step into the future at the same time. Many people struggle with this because leaving comfort feels like losing control. They want to see the outcome before they take the step. They want a guarantee before they let go. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith requires movement. It requires trust. It requires surrender. If Peter had waited for proof before stepping out of the boat, he never would have walked on water. He had to move first. Then the miracle happened. God often calls people into something greater, but fear keeps them stuck. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of the unknown. But here's the truth. Fear is not a stop. It's a sign that you are on the edge of something bigger than yourself. Every person who has ever stepped into greatness has faced fear. The difference is, they didn't let fear stop them. They moved forward anyway. Destiny requires obedience. Sometimes God will ask you to leave behind things that seem good, relationships, jobs, routines, because He has something better. The problem is, many people try to hold on to both. They want to stay where it's comfortable while stepping into what's next. But it doesn't work that way. You can't stay and go at the same time. You can't hold on and move forward. You must make a choice. Think of a trapeze artist. They swing from one bar to another high above the ground. But to reach the next bar, they must release the one they are holding. There is a moment in mid-air where they are holding on to nothing. That is the moment of faith. That is the moment where fear whispers, "What if you fall?" But if they refuse to let go, they will never move forward. God is calling you to step beyond comfort into calling. He is calling you to trust Him with what you cannot see. The question is, will you hold on to what is safe, or will you embrace what is sacred? The choice is yours. Destiny is on the other side of comfort. Will you take the step? The moment you decide to step out of your comfort zone, you begin to see life differently. What once seemed secure now feels like a limitation. What once gave you peace now feels like a cage. It is in this moment that you realize staying where you are is no longer an option. You feel the pull, the stirring in your heart, the undeniable sense that God is calling you to something greater. But stepping into that calling requires one thing: sacrifice. You must be willing to give up what is comfortable to embrace what is possible. When God calls you higher, He often calls you away from familiar surroundings, away from old habits, away from anything that is keeping you from becoming who you were meant to be. The challenge is that leaving comfort is not easy. It means walking into the unknown. It means stepping into places where you don't have all the answers. And for many, that is terrifying. But look at history. Every person who stepped into their divine purpose had to leave something behind. Abraham had to leave his homeland without knowing where he was going. Moses had to leave Pharaoh's palace to lead his people. The disciples had to leave their fishing boats to follow Jesus. In every case, the call required a choice: stay where it's safe or move forward into destiny. The problem with comfort is that it convinces you that where you are is good enough. It whispers, why take the risk? Why step into the unknown? What if you fail? And so many people settle. They settle for a life that is manageable instead of miraculous. They settle for routine instead of revelation. They settle for security instead of significance. But deep down, they know they were made for more. Faith does not flourish in places of ease. It grows in moments of uncertainty. It is tested in the fire of difficulty. When everything around you is uncertain, that is when you learn to rely on God completely. When you don't know what's ahead, that is when you begin to trust that He does. Consider Peter. He saw Jesus walking on water and asked, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the water." Jesus simply said, "Come." That was it. No explanation. No safety net. Just one word. And in that moment, Peter had to decide, stay in the boat where it was safe or step out into the unknown. The boat represented comfort. The water represented faith. And Peter had to choose. When you step out of your comfort zone, fear will always be present. It will tell you that you're not ready, that you don't have enough, that you will fail. But fear is not a sign that you should stop. It is a sign that you are on the edge of something greater. Every breakthrough, every miracle, every divine shift in your life will come on the other side of fear. God never calls people to small, predictable lives. He calls them to lives of faith, of purpose, of impact. But that kind of life requires obedience. It requires trust. It requires a willingness to leave behind the old to step into the new. Destiny is never found in comfort. It is found in the places where faith is required. The question is, will you stay where it's safe, or will you step into the life God has prepared for you? The choice is yours.
There are moments in life when everything seems to be falling apart. You make plans, set goals, and work hard, but then suddenly things don't go as expected. A door that you thought would open remains shut. An opportunity you were counting on disappears. A relationship you believed in crumbles. In those moments, it's easy to feel discouraged, to wonder if you've made a mistake, or to believe that maybe God isn't with you. But what if I told you that the obstacles you are facing are not roadblocks, but rather divine setups? What if the very thing that seems to be against you is actually part of God's greater plan? Many times we see obstacles as signs that we are on the wrong path. We think that if something is difficult, it must not be meant for us. But the truth is, God often uses obstacles to redirect, refine, and prepare us. What looks like a delay is sometimes God's way of setting things in order. What feels like rejection is often protection. What seems like failure is actually a step towards something better. Consider the story of Moses and the Israelites. When they left Egypt, they thought they were free. But then they found themselves trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army. From a human perspective, it looked like the end. There was no way forward and no way back. The people panicked, thinking that God had abandoned them. But what they didn't see was that God had placed them in that exact position for a reason. He was about to do something miraculous. He was about to part the sea and make a way where there was no way. The same is true in your life. Sometimes God will allow you to reach a place where you feel stuck, not to punish you, but to reveal His power. He allows obstacles so that when He makes a way, you will know without a doubt that it was Him. If the road was always easy, if there were never any challenges, you might think you accomplished things on your own. But when you face impossible situations and God steps in, your faith is strengthened and His glory is revealed. Look at David's life. Before he became king, he faced countless obstacles. He was overlooked by his own family, hunted by King Saul, and forced to live in caves. There were times when it looked like he would never fulfill his destiny. But every obstacle was part of God's plan. Every challenge prepared him for his calling. If David had not faced Goliath, he would not have stepped into the spotlight. If he had not been pursued by Saul, he would not have developed the leadership skills needed to be king. The obstacles were not there to stop him, they were there to prepare him. In the same way, the obstacles you are facing today are not there to defeat you, they are there to build you. They are there to teach you to rely on God, to strengthen your faith, and to prepare you for what's ahead. You may not understand why things are so difficult right now. You may feel like giving up, but if you could see what God is doing behind the scenes, you would realize that this struggle is temporary. The very thing that seems to be holding you back is actually setting you up for something greater. Sometimes God allows obstacles to test our faith. Will we trust Him even when things don't make sense? Will we keep moving forward even when the way is unclear? The enemy wants you to believe that obstacles mean you are alone, that God has forgotten you, that your dreams will never come to pass. But that is a lie. The presence of obstacles does not mean the absence of God. In fact, it often means the opposite. He is working in ways you cannot see. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that one day he would be a great leader, but instead of immediately stepping into that promise, he faced a series of obstacles: betrayal by his brothers, slavery, false accusations, imprisonment. From the outside, it looked like everything was going wrong, but in reality, everything was going exactly as God had planned. Each obstacle was leading Joseph closer to his destiny. If he had not been sold into slavery, he would not have ended up in Egypt. If he had not been falsely accused, he would not have been in the right place to interpret Pharaoh's dream. And if he had not interpreted Pharaoh's dream, he would not have been promoted to a position of power. What looked like setbacks were actually set up. That is how God works. He takes what the enemy meant for harm and turns it for good. He allows obstacles not to destroy you, but to develop you. The hardship you are facing right now is not the end of your story. It is just a chapter in a much bigger plan. If you stay faithful, if you refuse to give up, you will see how every difficulty was actually leading you to something greater. Comfort is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. It's natural to desire safety, predictability, and a sense of stability. We want to hold on to what we know, to what feels familiar, because stepping beyond it means stepping into the unknown. But growth, true lasting transformation, never happens in the confines of comfort. It happens in the moments of stretching, of uncertainty, of challenge. Think about a seed. A seed is comfortable in its shell, protected and whole. But for it to become a tree, it must break open. It must go into the dark soil, endure pressure, and experience discomfort. If the seed refused to break, it would never become what it was destined to be. That is the reality of life. The moment you choose to stay in what feels safe is the moment you stop growing. Many people pray for change, but they resist the process that brings change. They ask for a new level in life, but they hold on to the old one because it's familiar. They want to see the power of God move in their lives, but they don't want to let go of the comforts that keep them bound. But the truth is, you cannot have both. You cannot stay in the same place and grow. Faith is not built in places of certainty. It is not forged in the predictable, the familiar, or the comfortable. Faith is developed in the moments when you cannot see the next step, yet you walk anyway. It is in the seasons when everything around you feels uncertain, yet you trust that God is leading you. When you step beyond comfort, you step into a life that is no longer controlled by what you see, but by what you believe. Imagine a traveler standing at the edge of a vast desert. Behind them is the life they have always known, a place of safety, routine, and predictability. Ahead of them is an unknown journey, one without clear directions, without signs, without guarantees. But there is a voice inside them saying, "Go." That voice is faith. Faith does not provide all the details, it simply calls you forward. Many people want to see the whole picture before they move. They want to understand every step, every turn, and every outcome before they obey. But God does not operate that way. He calls you to trust Him, even when the path is unclear. When Peter saw Jesus walking on water, he asked, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the water." Jesus simply said, "Come." Peter had no map, no explanation, no proof that he wouldn't sink. But at that moment, he had to choose. Stay in the boat where it was safe, or step out into the unknown. The boat represented comfort. The water represented faith. Peter had to walk by faith, not by sight. Life often presents similar choices. God may be calling you to step into something new, maybe a new level of faith, a new opportunity, or a new season of growth. But the moment you step forward, fear whispers, "What if you fail? What if it doesn't work? What if you sink?" And so many people stay in the boat. They choose comfort over calling. They choose certainty over trust. But faith is not about having all the answers. It is about believing that God is guiding you, even when you cannot see where you are going. It is about trusting that He has a plan, even when the road ahead is uncertain. Walking by faith means surrendering control. It means acknowledging that your own understanding is limited, but God sees the whole picture. The greatest breakthroughs in life happen when people step out in faith. Abraham left everything he knew to follow God's promise. Moses stood before the Red Sea with no way forward until he lifted his staff in obedience. The walls of Jericho did not fall until the Israelites marched in faith. None of these people had a guarantee. They only had a word from God, and that was enough. Faith is not just believing in God, it is acting on His word. It is moving forward even when fear tries to hold you back. It is trusting that God's plan is greater than your understanding. When you choose to walk by faith and not by sight, you step into a life of miracles, purpose, and divine direction. You leave behind the limitations of human reasoning and step into the limitless possibilities of God.